Templeton Regional School Committee to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all the members here this evening, all the community members. We are here tonight not to vote. There will not be a vote tonight. The only vote would be to disband, to decommission, or to no longer have the District Reorganization Advisory Committee because their work will be done after this presentation. But there will not be a vote on any other business tonight. The purpose of tonight is to share the information from the District Advisory Reorganization Committee. So that is our purpose. We are going to do public input after the presentation because this is the information that you will have, and then maybe you will have input. When we do input, we have a policy, and the policy is to come down front and identify yourself, your name, where you live, street. Then we have a 3-minute succinct comment section. And we keep it brief so that everybody can have their opinion. We also expect that the comments will be respectful. And we will have public input at the end of the meeting. The purpose here is to look at the information that the District Reorganization Committee came up with, and it is going to be presented to you in the form of a PowerPoint. It's going to be presented by 2 community members. We'll start off with Mr. Jeff Marks, and I thank him, from Phillipston. And we will have Mackenzie Lyons from Templeton, who will address parts of the...
No, she's from Templeton.
She's from Templeton?
Yep.
That will have parts of the PowerPoint as well. Thank you, ladies. And Ms. Lyons is not here at the moment. She runs our after-school program, and she is in transit between Phillipston and here. So I'm going to ask Mr. Marks if he would start the PowerPoint. First of all, maybe before he does that, do we have the list of members? If you don't, I do.
Yes, it's on the back of the committee.
Right.
On the first page, the back of the file.
On the front that we have here. Okay. And they are posted right now in front of you so that you notice that this particular committee was represented by all parts of our school community and both of our towns, in addition to our elected officials. In some cases, we have administrators, town administrators from both towns. So, thank you very much. Mr. Marks?
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mr. Marks?
Good. Thank you. So, as you explained, I just wanted to start out by saying that the members on the advisory committee were made up of a sampling of the community, okay? I just want to make that very clear. The goal of this committee was to meet to review information on the existing makeup of the school, as well as to review and discuss any additional information, which we did. We had, I believe it was 7 or 8 meetings where we got together. I do want to reassure everybody, as you said, that this was only an advisory committee whose purpose was to review the information and report it back to the school board, okay? To the school committee, excuse me. No agenda. We have no authority other than to provide the information, okay? Let me just say we're all aware that there were very strong feelings on both sides of the aisle regarding the issues here. And we do also understand that there has been a great deal of misinformation that has been going out there, and we're aware of that. So I just want to start with that, okay? The timeline. Okay, so this is basically the timeline, a piece of the information that we started with. The one thing that is not up there was, and again, we are aware of it, was that in 2005, the town of Phillipston did vote not to be part of the regional elementary school, okay? Good.
Clarification.
Yep.
They voted not to be part of the regional elementary school or the new Templeton Elementary School being built?
For the elementary school not to be part of the Templeton school. Yes.
Because we are a regional district.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Marks, would it be helpful, Madam Chair, if I just go over the basic information, and Mr. Marks and Ms. Lyons can talk about the actual work of the committee?
That would work,
Because
Mr. Marks?
This information, it comes more from the central office, so to speak, and I think it might be easier for Mr. Marks. What a great job so far. I would hate to put him through that, honestly.
Thank you.
So, as Mr. Marks had stated, the very first meeting was just to understand how things were currently configured. As of October 1, these numbers do change, but the current configuration is as follows. Templeton Center has 172 students, and they are currently, housed in the middle school. Baldwinville Elementary has 286 kids, grades 2nd to 4th. Phillips Elementary has 179 students, pre-K to 4. The middle school, 5 through 8, has 464 students, and the high school, 343 students. That's how we currently sit today. 13, 15 years ago, when plans were made in order to build a Templeton Center, a new Templeton Center Elementary School, it's my belief, because there's really no documentation to support this, that it took so long. I don't think anyone really thought it was going to happen. I think that it was such a hard fight in order for it to happen that the reconfiguration of the district kind of fell by the wayside. Well, as you know, there's a big giant hole where Templeton Center used to sit, and there's a building that's going to be built. So that's why the school committee chair, from my perspective, decided to have this subcommittee in order to look at the information, as Mr. Lyons pointed out. So the projected configuration once the new Templeton Center School is built, and that date, by the way, is a pretty hard date of August 2019. So in terms of school years, we have, if I don't count this school year, we have one more school year left. So next year will be the last school year in the current reconfiguration. How would that look if, in fact, the same numbers existed a year from now? So the new Templeton Center with pre-K through 5 only, Templeton students plus the pre-K, 639 students given today's numbers. Phillipston Elementary would have 115 students only from Phillipston, K through 5. The middle school would have 347 students, grades 6 through 8. This is where the regional begins. And high school would have 343 students, grades 9 through 12, given the current numbers that we have today. So, it was at this point that the subcommittee was charged to look at this and to really come up with some ideas, comments, concerns, etc. And so at this point, and in perfect timing as always, the current reconfiguration plan, because you just walked right through the door, it's awesome. This is really where the committee took over and started to look at the things that we currently have planned, because this is the original plan that we discussed, and some alternative plans, which were some alternative facts, considerations, etc., that came up after. So I'm going to turn it right over to you. So I was going to really kind of turn it over to you at this point, talk about this, and then, of course, the process of it.
All right, time for
Thank you. Okay, so the current reconfiguration of the original plan and what was voted on was for all all Templeton K through 5 elementary students would attend the new Templeton Elementary School. Okay. All Phillipston K through 5 elementary students would attend the Phillipston Elementary School, and all students 6 through 12 from both towns would attend the middle and high schools, and pre-K students would go to the newly built Templeton Elementary School. Okay. The strengths of this original plan were that it is the original plan, and this is the plan that the residents of Phillipston voted on in 2005. Okay. Elementary age students would be educated in the town that they live in. I hate to. The new elementary school is designed to support pre-K students. That means it was built that way, with the bathrooms in the classroom, and it would be a one-stop drop-off pickup.
Yeah, and also what they said about the developmentally appropriate playground was that there was a specific preschool playground built into the plan of the new elementary school. So.
Okay. The challenges of the original plan. There has a great deal of changes has changed in the past 13 years since the original design was discussed. The enrollment has changed, as Chris has talked about. The financial of the towns, the staffing patterns, as well as the students. Excuse me. This would require the hiring of at least 3 additional teachers, okay? And that would be to provide offerings to both schools, because we would have similar grades in both schools, in the Templeton School as well as the Phillipston School. There was a great deal of discussion on this.
Just to add to the 3 additional teachers, I believe that was what we said we would have an issue with, like art and music, those ones, if I'm not mistaken. Just the moving K through 5 to the new elementary school, it would take up 5 days a week for those specials teachers. So we said it would be challenging to find teachers to do art 1 day a week in Phillipston, or music 1 day a week. So that would be a challenge, and those are, I think, the additional teachers that we're speaking about here.
Okay. The facility inequity, and this was really a lot of the focus on this was the state of the art versus the conventional. With the new school being built, you have a lot of state of the art. There was a lot of discussion around this subject here. We discussed different ways of teaching for the students, even if it wasn't the state of the art. You know, there would be different ways for the teachers to teach, even though they didn't have the state of the art equipment. There was a lot of discussion around would conventional students be disadvantaged when they got to the 6th grade, not having the technology as they were. The ratio of students to teachers in Phillipston, because of the amount of students, would not be cost effective. Okay.
I just want to speak to that.
Yep.
So where you were saying the state of the art versus conventional, we also, I would just include that not only the technology, but all of the resources that, they're going to have brand new facilities with, age-appropriate playground, a stage, a lunch room, and a gym, and all this, the new equipment that comes with it.
Music room.
The new music room, thank you. That's new music room with all new instruments. That's maybe stuff that they don't have access to in Phillipston. I know that the art room had a kiln built in it, so it just opens up more possibilities for teaching.
Okay, as for the alternate plan, the makeup of the alternate plan would be that all preschool and kindergarten students, regardless of where they lived, would attend the Phillipston school. Okay, every 1st through 5th grader, regardless of where they lived, would attend the Templeton Elementary School. And all students in grades 6 through 12 would attend the Narragansett. No change. Okay, would be the same. Okay, the strengths of the alternate plan, or the strengths that we found of the alternate plan, would be all grade level students would be educated together. Again, there was lots of discussion about this. We talked a lot about social interaction. We talked a lot about behavioral issues and things like that. Okay? The ability to more easily consolidate instructional resources and share ideas. Again, a lot of discussion went along this, where if teachers were separated from Templeton versus Elementary, they wouldn't be day-to-day, where they could sit down and talk and share ideas and things like that. So that's really, again, a lot of information. Go ahead.
And just some input that we had from actual teachers that were in the reorg group with us was just, a lot of it was that they felt that maybe the Phillipston teachers might miss out on that just sharing of ideas and stuff, not necessarily formal, like common planning, but seeing something in the hallway, hey, this lesson worked great, this didn't, or you know what I mean, just sharing information with other teachers that are in their grade level. It's harder to access.
How they might, again, how they might have taught an assignment, what worked well for those students and things like that, when they're together, when they're in close proximity, that they can share those discussions or those ideas. Again, although we did briefly touch upon it, the state of the learning, it could be a strength for the alternate plan. And this plan does support the regional district model, okay? And as well as, because of the additional teachers on the other plan, it is a cost-effective model to run it this way, okay? The challenges to the alternate plan, it's a politically charged issue for both towns, okay? A lot of discussions around that as well. Repurposing of the specific space at the new school, because it wasn't the original plan, it wasn't the way the classrooms were designed, we would have to move things around. So, you know, there would have to be further discussion about that. The potential for due location drop-off and pickup issues, okay? Okay. And the transition for students, there would be two transitions rather than just a single transition.
Right, because that would be the transition from the early childhood building, which would be pre-K and K, to Templeton Center Elementary, the new one, and then to middle school, so it might be easier. That might be an issue. Other considerations?
So the other considerations that were discussed, it didn't really make it to an option or a formal consideration, was what would middle school schedule look like now that it only has 3 grades, which is, well, actually, the middle school schedule is more traditional on 3 grades. We talked about what kind of opportunities they would have there or some deficits. Middle school administration configuration, what exactly would be the administration configuration of the middle school as it currently is now, and what would it be with, give or take, 125 less students in the building under the middle school umbrella. Special education service caseload, we talked quite a bit about special education services and ADA compliances, and et cetera. That's a hard one to really get into because you never know what your caseload is until really the year it's right in front of you. And so that would have to be one of those things that we'd have to look at once everything gets moved one way or another. Busing is a major consideration. A lot like special education services, busing is something that you don't know what you have until you know what the routes are. And so what we do know that under the original model that we would have to be transporting roughly 125 more kids. Because remember, the 5th grade now would be at the elementary level, and what will that do to the number of buses that we currently have? Again, we won't know that until we see where kids are situated. Being that we're a regional, we must bus, and so that is part of the statute on that. And the change of school start times, that came up a bit, but I can certainly speak to that, but we really didn't talk much about a change of school times. Middle and high school will start on the same time. In other words, whatever that time is, they will be at the same time. Let's put it that way, and they'll end at the same time. And elementary will, of course, be on its own schedule, and it is now, for that matter. But these are the other considerations that came up. They were worthy of a list, and at least a brief note. They came up enough to warrant that. So, you guys want to do this?
Yeah.
Just end it.
So, as the committee come up, so after, again, our goal was to come here tonight and present it to the committee, and we feel that after the school committee has received the information and discussed it, what we provided here, we feel that the next steps moving forward would be to potentially hold a community forum, community input surveys, which we did, we come up with a sampling on that. We discussed that, what that might look like. Possible online availability for ballots for voting in a ballot box. Again, we didn't really get into too much of the details, so we weren't sure how that was going to move forward.
Yeah, we just suggested, getting that survey out to everybody that we can. We have everybody's emails in the district, like all students and families, so we could at least get them to them, and then to get it to other families in town, in both Phillipston and Templeton. We would, I think, Dr. Cassman, we have a list of all the children in town or something like that.
We know we have a list of our daycare providers.
Right.
As it says here, what would have to happen would be a real push of the information on both sides.
Right.
Cable TV, it has to be hard ballots, which we put there, has to be in a place where people who didn't have computer access, they could go at least fill them out and put it in a ballot box. These things were, I think, that we kind of touched upon.
Yeah.
Something for the community to
Advertisements.
Yeah, right. And our goal is just to hopefully reach everybody in the community, whether they have children in the school right now or in the future, or not at all, but they're interested in it. Yep. So that was important to us. And then there would be a press release about it, right? And we would put that in the newspaper, I think we talked about.
Right, exactly. The press release would be, obviously, would be timed community forum, so that way it would make all three papers, the Outlaw,
Yep.
the Gardner News, and Wilmington Courier, and we could certainly ask if the Telegram would put that in, we'll see. But certainly put out as many media modes as possible. So.
Thank you.
I thank you both very much.
You did some hard work.
I apologize, I'm not as polished as
It is great.
Dr. Cassman, but
You did
it's
great.
there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. Mrs. Chartier and I were both on this subcommittee, the advisory subcommittee. But this information is the first time around for our other school committee members. So, Mr. Sandin attended a couple of our public sessions as well. So this is the first time that you've seen the results of this subcommittee, which did meet 6 times. So what I'd like to do now is to receive some comments from school committee members as to how they feel they'd like to proceed with this. Mrs. Coase?
I really feel we need to do forums and listen to people's concerns and answer questions the best that we're able to. And I think the survey is a wonderful idea. I don't think we can make any decisions until we do those 2 things.
Well, not only that, you can run this by the NSBA. We'll find out what the costs actually going to be, transportation, all these other different things. So, until you have that kind
Until we have the info, yeah.
it's going to be hard to make any kind of decision. So.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
It was discussed at several meetings about the MSBA. Of course, the MSBA is huge in this. It goes without saying. I did reach out, and we did receive the advice that if, in fact, it was plausible, or if it was something that folks were seriously considering in terms of a change, that's when you would go to the MSBA, at least sooner rather than later, obviously, to talk about the ramifications of that. But they would absolutely have to be, but only if, in other words, don't go to the MSBA unless you have, a serious intent to do something. There's no need to spoof them, so to speak.
Right. So what we're trying to find out is what the community feels about this.
Right.
And that would then be evidence to approach the MSBA. But if the community, both communities don't want this, or people do want it, we need the evidence to go there. That's why this is first. Yes, Mrs.
Will we have financial ramifications both ways? Will you have those
We do.
numbers, basic? I know they can't be accurate, but
Transportation will be an issue, but this first of all was not based on money.
I understand that, but money will come into consideration.
Money does come into consideration, but this was the educational students. Money became a factor from that.
Mm-hmm.
What was clear that there'd be financial considerations either way. What the subcommittee quickly found is that when we produced very rough schedules of how the teacher schedule would look, because we had to do some education around how does an elementary schedule work, and how do teachers go to lunch, and how we went through that process. And a lot is built on unified arts folks, so when teachers are not with their students, they must be somewhere. So that's where unified arts teachers come in, right? So they're always with the teacher, it's depending on where they're at. So we went through a process of showing schedules about what did that mean, and why are we talking about unified arts teachers necessarily, not other teachers. There's an asterisk here, and it's not certainly Mr. Jakes' issue. I forgot to tell him that we think through. We won't know until we get closer, because lots of things can shake loose. The reason why pre-KK came up, because that was actually asked. The question became equity. Whatever you offer at one elementary, you must offer at another. That is absolute. That is not to be. It's not to be argued.
There's no discussion.
There's no discussion around that. Just ethically, it's important to do that if no other reason. So we don't know exactly at that point what the basics are, but we could be less or more. We don't know, but there will be a cost to that. Any other model, would come at probably a political cost, but there'd be some. But we really couldn't. We didn't ferret it out much farther than what we have currently.
Yes. Mr. Mason, then Mrs. Hughes.
Do you have a projected enrollment, what it would be 1 through 5 at the middle school?
At the middle school?
No, yes.
So
the alternate plan.
this would be, let me do
639.
So
That's
current, if you go projecting,
Oh, I'm sorry.
using
Current.
the numbers that we have, it's in the packet, but it's up on the board now, you can see it, I can't see.
639.
New Templeton Center with pre-K would have 639 kids.
I think he's asking if the alternate plan,
the alternate plan.
what would 1 through 5 look like? Like
With
how
the
many
alternate.
students would be in
So oddly enough, because the numbers are oddly the same in terms of how many pre-K kids we would have, we have roughly 170 kids down in Phillipston now, currently. Given the other consideration, you'd have about the same number. It would just be pre-K kids.
Excuse me, when we have speakers, we have people listening to the speakers, please. Mrs. Hughes and then Mrs. Kojal.
I know I've done my research on best educational value and how configurations of schools look. I'm curious, Dr. Kazavant, since I'm sure you've spent a little more time with research, and if anyone else has, certainly I would be welcome to listen. Forget about our political motivations and our own agendas. What is best for our kids from an educational capacity?
Well, I think we've touched upon something that's easily seen in one instance and not so much in the other. So if we're talking about educational balance, opportunity, etc., one could argue that having every grade level together is a good thing. Okay, why? Because there'll be consistency across the curriculum. It's easier to do a lot of things. It's more cost effective, etc., etc., etc. So with that said, that is in a perfect world. As a matter of fact, when broken into subgroups, where I will share that I think there were 14 or 15 members of the committee at a particular meeting, when they shared both pros and cons, 3 of the 4 groups shared that it was educationally more sound, an alternative, some alternative. It was better educationally, but it was a political nightmare. And I believe that they all used the same wording. So I will go to the unseen. If, in fact, you're asking, if a change were to happen and it is politically, on fire, so to speak, then that's not healthy. It's not healthy for children. It's not. But it does seep into the education.
And I understand that, but I think the baseline I'm trying to put down is what is best for our kids. We all need to come back to what is best for our kids, because that is what this committee must look at first, and then we can proceed from there. So what I want to make clear is that I don't think that this committee was reaching at straws and coming up with ideas on their own that can't be supported by some evidence-based, fact-based research that's out there. That's what I'm hoping to hear, is that it has been, we've seen this in other districts, other school systems, where this model truly does make a difference for our kids. So if that's our starting point, we can get to all of our own baggage later, but I think we need to start there. So that's what I want to hear. Is that, in fact, the case?
Well, yes. It's in fact the case that those things that affect education are important. So I'm not trying to dodge. What I'm saying is that when a culture is strong, then anything can work. What I'm saying that if it's not strong and it's argumentative and it might be sour, then that is going to affect no matter what you do in terms of the educational process. I know if you're asking about the nuts and bolts of education and you're asking about the linear the educational model, is that when you can put them together, that is best, because you can consolidate resources, you can use less in a better way, and you ultimately will become better. That is on the surface. Everything below is the
Yes. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Kojal and Mr. Sandin.
Will we be able to meet with our teaching staff and ask questions? Or will they be allowed to they'll be doing the survey, right? We'll get their feedback through the survey.
I met with those teachers briefly. I need to meet with them again, but I have a tentative meeting scheduled for the Templeton Center teachers after the break, and then BES at some point to go over any kind of questions or things that they think are.
And teachers are certainly welcome to come to this community forum and do any input that they have. Basically, we're trying to find out how the communities are reacting to this as well. Mr. Sandin, then Mrs. Matson.
When Phillipston went to Templeton in a district, it was the obligation of each town to supply an elementary school. And it was also the obligation of the district to staff those schools. I don't think anybody would have gone into that agreement if they found out that most of the kids were suddenly going to be shipped over to the other town. They expect that school in Phillipston to continue to run with the Phillipston kids in it. I think this is simply a crude attempt to circumvent the regional agreement from 2004 and force Phillipston into a situation they don't want to be in.
Thank you. Mrs. Matson?
I have a question. When we first started the Templeton Elementary project, I believe it was school people that started it. It then, once it became accepted by MSBA, a few years into it, I believe the town, after Phillipston declined coming aboard, the town kind of took it over, the project that is, and then we got it approved through the town. I also believe that Phillipston was asked again at that time when it was approved through Templeton if they wanted to come aboard again. not through the whole town, but through their Board of Selectmen quietly, and they declined again. So we proceeded as a Templeton project. As such, who has given the school committee the authority to make either decision as far as where the kids go? Because clearly it was a Templeton project, and I just don't see where we should come between the work that was done for Templeton.
So your question is, who gave the school committee the right to do the subcommittee and to start looking into how opening up this school is going to affect the students?
No, I want to know who gave us the authority to be able to choose which way the students are configured.
Quickly, I think, in my opinion, that's the job of the school committee. The school committee is here to look at, and when we project further into the future, so that we can see how things are going to be better for students and look at all of the aspects, that is the job of the school committee.
That is correct. However, if it was a Templeton project, it was also taken over by the town at one point.
It is a town project, town of
Correct.
Templeton.
So is it a town project or is it a school project?
The building is the town's. The town of Templeton owns that building.
So I guess that's where I'm having some confusion as to where does the authority come from for us to step in and renegotiate what was originally projected.
We're looking into it. Mr. Mason has something to add.
I'm just going to say, the regional agreement does kind of direct that issue to some
We're looking at
extent.
it.
So.
Mrs. Hughes, do you have the
Yeah.
relevant section of the regional agreement?
The town of Phillipston leases the Phillipston Memorial School. The town of Templeton leases their schools, which of course, as we know, it will be a new school at this point, since all of the other schools don't exist, other than Baldenville, and that's not capable of being used. There's nothing in here about leasing. What restrictions are placed on the district as far as what they do with those. It does say assignment of sorry, let me get to the right section. Assignment of pupils, excuse me, is pupils shall be assigned by the superintendent of schools, who shall take into account but not be bound by any recommendations of the school committee, consistent with the Educational Reform Act of 1993, provided that any time the assignment of students result in more than 10% of the pupils of the whole school being from out of town, then that reassignment shall require 7/8 school committee vote in favor. So-called school choice students shall be exempt from this requirement. So the agreement gives the authority to the school committee to utilize the buildings as they see fit within the constraints of the agreement of the assignment of students in that 10% clause. So that there's nothing in here that says the superintendent, because the agreement gives the superintendent that authority, can't move kids around as he sees fit until it reaches 10%. And then the school committee would need to vote to approve anything above and beyond that, unless the agreement was amended at some point going forward.
Again, we jumped to this, and I understand why. What people have been concerned about is that, again, we circumvent the regional agreement, but the fact is that if we move kids, again, the subcommittee was looking at different ways to see what were more palatable, what were best for kids. Where it starts getting into some real legal water, or deep water, is, in fact, if it becomes a regional elementary, which was never discussed. It was literally about that they were charged with the same thing. What would be advantageous or not advantageous about several considerations. And I think that somewhere it somehow materialized or it manifested itself into this was some type of way of trying to get Phillipston to buy into the new elementary school. That never ever came up. It certainly came up like as a concern, as the politically charged comment was on one of the considerations. But they simply were charged with looking at better and different ways if it should need to be done other than the original plan. And so I think that again, none of this could happen without all kinds of boards and the MSBA and lawyers, I'm going to assume, would get involved. These folks were just looking, we were looking at all these different scenarios that came up in questions, which were there was a question in the second meeting of these 8 meetings was, what questions do you have about anything, basically? And I was charged with answering, I don't even know, 20, 30 different questions. This is how this all kind of manifested itself from there. There was no plan otherwise. And so I think that before we go too far down the road of thinking this way, it literally was just trying to think outside the box in case people were worried about money. Okay? And I think that that's the group, if nothing else, were very fiscally minded and wanted to see if they could think of better ways, better ways to spend the hard-earned money of both Phillipston and Templeton. And so that's what came up as a consideration.
I think there was also a great deal of discussion between what could be done with a pre-KK, all in the same space, and the advantageousness of all of that, and also to have all the 5th grades to be able to enhance students and to be able to help with the remediation with some students by appropriate grouping. So that gave a great deal of discussion as part of it. And so, any further questions from the committee? Do we need a motion to move forward with forums and surveys? We'll do the public comment, then we may look at a motion too. I don't know if it's a motion, but... All right, I'm going to repeat the comments, repeat the procedure we have for public comments. So when you have a comment and you're recognized, we'd like you to come down front, identify yourself, where you live and what town you're from. Most importantly, we'd like to be respectful of all people in both communities as we speak, and all students. We have a 3-minute timeline, so be as succinct as you can. And we are, again, remember as you're speaking, there is no vote tonight. The vote, if there's a vote, or maybe it's just a motion and a second from the committee to move forward with public forums so that we can get information from many more people and get some surveys out to see what people have to say. We are not voting on any motion. So I'm looking for public comment. Mrs. Flynn. Sometimes we do, but I'm a teacher, so the common answer was it's my time. Thank you.
So my name is Stephanie Flynn. I'm from Phillipston, but for 15 years I lived in Baldenville, and I've lived now in Phillipston for 17. So I've been in the district 32 years. What concerns me is not so much about what you're talking about, but Phillipston as a community. Phillipston as a community has Memorial Day on Sunday so the band can come, because Templeton has Memorial Day on Monday. It's a compromise we've made forever. Phillipston has Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Brownies, Daisies, you name them. They often meet at the school, and they walk over to the church if they're going to meet at the church. So any decision you'd make that would remove Phillipston students from Phillipston Memorial School would severely affect our very strong scouting program. Phillipston also is very proud of their library, that Edna Haley started the program years ago, where the students from Phillipston Memorial walked over to Phillipston Library. Vicki Chartier's kids did that, Dan Sandin's kids did that, my kids did that. Very proud of our library, and it gets used because the kids go there once a month, and then they encourage their parents to go. And that's a very special part of what we do in Phillipston. We see the kids walk from the school, and hey, we all need to walk more. And they walk from the school to the library. Phillipston also has a very active cultural council. I'm on that. And our cultural council votes every year for special programs that happen at Phillipston Memorial School. We send the kids to theater at the Mount every year. And that's, again, through Phillipston Memorial School. I'm not saying Templeton doesn't do the same things. I'm just telling you some of what's special at Phillipston. Phillipston, years ago, we had to cut in our budget a first grade teacher. It's when the Geister triplets were going through. It was the year behind my Andrew. And Phillipston paid separately out of our own money to make sure that there were 2 teachers in the first grade, because we didn't want a class of 36 kids. We also had a year where there was no music teacher. And I only volunteered for 1 grade, but we had 3 other volunteers that volunteered for 3 other grades. So every single grade had music that year that there was no music in the elementary school level. As far as the stage, I want you to know, because my husband works for John Phillipsiak, we just got a grant to put in an elevator in our town hall. Huge grant, over $1 million. And we're going to be able to use our stage at Phillipston Town Hall. So please don't worry about us not having a stage. We will have a stage. We volunteered to teach music. We volunteered to pay for our first grade teacher. There's lots of wonderful things at Phillipston that are part of the community. And what makes Phillipston special is those things, the church, the town hall, the library, all in close proximity, where we know our police and we know our fire. Our fire department comes and does a special program every October. And I'm sure these things happen in Templeton, but for us it's special because it's our Phillipston Fire Department, our Phillipston Police Department. So I think Phillipston's a very special place. I've lived in both parts of the district. I also urge you not to say we don't want to spook MSBA. Let's be honest with MSBA. Tell them what we're talking about, and let's get a real number so we have a real number to work with. Because I think it's only fair when we make this decision that we know the cost involved. Because Phillipston struggles financially just as Templeton does. Maybe we're not in the newspaper quite as much about it, but my husband gets $22 an hour as the executive secretary in Phillipston. So I'm being honest with you. Can you imagine that let me put it this way, I'm sure that that's not the case in Templeton. So we struggle financially too. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Do I have any other input? Yes, please, come on down. Is it Mrs. Fuller? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Marita Fuller. I've lived here all my life. My kids went through school here.
Excuse me, can you tell me where you currently live?
I live in Baldwinville, Highland Avenue.
Thank you.
Lived in Baldwinville all my life. And my kids went through the district, and when they went to the middle school, it was always Phillipston versus Templeton versus East Templeton. And I'm for the school being all together. But my question is, when we decided to do this in 2005, was Phillipston aware of, you're saying like conventional versus the state of the art? I mean, I understand that being Phillipston, they won't be the state of the art, but why was this committee not started then to make them be equal, and maybe they would have voted for the new school in Phillipston and be together? That's my question. Why was there a plan in 2005? Were they aware of it?
Mrs. Chartier.
I don't really recall what the plan was. I do recall there was a group of people, because I believe Keith Eaton, I remember Keith being on it, so
Yeah.
at least I know one person was there, presenting to a group of Phillipston at the time, the gym. I don't know what year that was. Maybe it was 2005. I do remember a conversation taking place with everybody up at the table. How deep it got into the discussion, I don't know. I feel like it was a pretty short-lived conversation. I kind of wish we had been able to go back and discuss. I think the forums are important because, I'm listening to Pastor Flynn speak, and, I hear what she's saying. Phillipston is very proud of their town and their community.
Right.
I'm listening to you, and there's
They really need
a
to
lot
be-
of discussion that needs to take place, and that's why I think the forum is a good idea, because
Yeah.
people need to hear both sides.
Right.
I wish we could go back to 2005 and have these conversations. Maybe they did take place. I don't really remember them being that deep
Yeah.
in conversation.
And my other question is, like, when you say conventional, like, when you have pre-K and K, now, are they going to be up to the state-of-the-art? Is that building going to be redone to make it like Templeton Center? So they are now state-of-the-art also, not the conventional? What is the plan for pre-K and K?
Well, pre-K and K will be serviced. They have different needs and different requirements, and they're funded by the state. NEASC is one of our accreditors. So they will follow all the requirements of NEASC, so they will have all that they will need.
Okay.
And because that's the requirement that the state has.
And it's very early in conversation, so this isn't something that, like, our reorganization committee really discussed.
Okay.
Like, how are we going to bring that up to,
Yeah.
to the same?
And my last other question is, now if we change the new school to be a 1 through 5, the blueprints and everything that's been done with the contractors is now pre-K through 5. Now, bathrooms are going to be pre-K. How is that going? That's another cost that we're going to have to incur if we change this to a 1 through 5.
You're bringing up many things that we will have to look at. However, right now what we're trying to get is a feel from people such as yourself and many of your friends and neighbors to what do they feel about this type of configuration.
Right.
And then we will go at that information and redirect it if we have, but we don't have it yet. But what you also brought up a point when you asked, why didn't we have this in the past?
Yeah.
What we're trying to do as a subcommittee here is to look to the future so that we can say, we talked about this now, and this is what most of the people wanted, and we will know 5 years from now that people understood what we're talking about.
Yeah. But as a Templeton resident, I'm concerned by, they didn't want to be, I'm not against being together, but we decided on being a Templeton school. That was our project. We put our heart and soul into that. And now I feel that, not that I'm against them being together, but I don't feel like it should, a lot of people are going to be against it because they are not going to want, Phillipston is always going to want, I'm not saying bad or good, but it's going to be a conflict with who pays what. And I don't know how you're going to break that connection, how you're going to break that wall with making it with the Templeton voters. That's...
Excellent.
Can I say again?
Yes, Mrs.
And again, and I understand what you're saying completely, and I get the political part of it, I completely do. But the conversations need to take place so that people can understand, regardless of where it goes, there are pros and cons to both.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we just need to, everybody needs to understand.
Right, and I think if it's
what's gonna be the
presented
outcome.
in a political way, like I think I would vote for it because I would want them to be all together. Because I think they need to be together to be friends, because they're going to go to middle school together also.
Thank you very much. Mr. Telepsiak. Mr. Telepsiak.
Good evening. My name is John Telepsiak. I live in Phillipston. I happen to be on the select board, and I just wanted to clarify a few things. One of which was when it was mentioned whether Phillipston was given a chance to give their opinion on a new school when it became a reality recently, Superintendent Miller had come to regular posted selectmen's meetings that were on the agenda, and it was brought to our attention it would be a new facility and all that. And it wasn't the whole town, but it was a resounding no, we're not interested. So it wasn't quietly, it was announced. And this advisory committee, this was brainstorming ideas and what we're going at. There was no vote taken as a recommendation of what that committee thought. I just wanted to clarify that as well. And Dr. Casavan attended our selectmen's meeting last night. He got kind of a flavor of how the people feel there. Our meetings are well attended, and well, we still feel the way we did. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you for attending the subcommittee.
Do we have other comments? Yes. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Carolyn Hamill, and I live in Phillipston. I'm born there, lived there my whole life. Point that I want to bring up is people move to Phillipston because of the school. They research, like we have teachers that moved from Leominster and research and moved. They love the school district. And also other towns choose to send their kids to Phillipston over other schools. I mean, we have Fitchburg kids, Winchton, all that. And it's a traditional school, and it's the heart of the town. It would be very sad to lose that. My mom went there. I went there. My kids go there. It means a lot. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Christine Bennett from Phillipston. One thing I wanted to say was I was actually on the committee, I believe it was with Miller, the last time we tried to update the regional agreement. And we had several meetings. We got to the point where we were going to make recommendations, and one of them was to add an amendment to the agreement that specifically said each town shall maintain its own elementary school, because it's not in there specifically, as has been said. And at the time, Templeton didn't have anything actually in the works. We were kind of trying to force them to do so, to upgrade their schools that we had heard were, falling apart. That didn't happen because the representative from the Templeton Select Board was not renewed in office. I can't remember if it was a recall or left. And then when the new person came, they said, we're not going to do anything that was already discussed. We're going to start fresh. And then we were never called to meet again. But that was a major concern from people in both towns. I think it was 2013 or 14. I'm not sure. My other comment, which I didn't really see in the presentation at all being discussed, is when you say leaving things as is, my personal recommendation would be to leave the 5th grade at the middle school. That's the least upheaval, the least havoc created on the students, the parents, the teachers, who would have to move and reassess everything. So I would like to please see that on the survey as well as a potential option.
Thank you.
I think we did talk about putting a spot in there for comments, because even just last night talking about other options, I thought, well, what does it look like if send the 5th and 6th grade back?
Yeah.
How does that look? And obviously that's not feasible, but there is at least a spot on there for comments. Maybe we need to add something a little. I think the survey would be after the forum. Is that correct? Which, I mean, the forum is important. People need to have conversation. Maybe that's something we would.
Yeah, that's great. That was actually discussed, and it really falls under the same guise as the recommendation is current. If that is something that the district, the entity wants to look into, that's an NRSD question as well. So those are the things that we brush up against, which is fine. It's just that we want to make,
So maybe we would tweak the options to include something additional, as in keeping the 5th grade there. I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but that's something we could always add as an option too.
I mean, that's more of a keeping it as is, because the proposal, the way it said on the survey, keeping it as is the proposal for 2019 is not in effect yet. This would be more keeping it as is. And for me as a parent, that's a lesser of two evils of changing what the Templeton parents were promised when they voted for the new school, pre-K through 5. I would rather have the less upheaval at the younger ages. Because as a parent, and I'm also not positive, but for the people on the committee, it didn't seem that there's anybody who has elementary kids in the system at the time, right now, or coming anytime soon. It's more people with older children. So the younger ages, it's a lot more people driving back and forth to preschool every day, and kindergarten concerned of them being on the bus longer. If I was on the Templeton side, I would want the younger ages accommodated in the new school I was promised, and the 5th grade can stay where they currently are now.
We did have early childhood and 1st grade teachers on the subcommittee as well. But the place for comments was mentioned, and that will come out of the forum.
Pre-K going to go to Templeton anyway?
Thank you very much. Yeah, pre-K is going to Templeton, yeah. Both pre-K students will be going to
Both towns?
from Templeton and Phillipston. Pre-K goes to Templeton. Yes, Ms. Hughes, come on down.
Not today. Hi, my name is Emma Hughes. I am 15 years old. I am from Phillipston, and I am a 10th grader at Narragansett High School. I have not experienced the length of time many of the people in this room have in my town. I've been here for like 10 years-ish, but probably only 7 conscious years because I don't really remember anything before starting 5th grade here in 2012. So really, I'm only here tonight because I'm hoping my mom will get me food after this meeting. But sitting in the meeting and listening to what everyone's saying, I feel like what is being neglected is the student perspective of this issue. It's all very political and adult, which isn't a bad thing. It all needs to happen. But I think that as a student, with my experiences in elementary school and the middle school here, no one really cared where people were from. It was about the education, the social experiences. But if, like I was from Phillipston, I had friends from everywhere around, and no one, like, there wasn't a thing about being, oh, I went to East Templeton, I went to Baldwinville, I went to Phillipston, I went to Catholic school, I went to here, there, everywhere. So I feel like the perceived, I don't know, the differences between the two communities aren't, not that they're not existent, it's just that they're not as much as everyone stresses. So I guess my ultimate point is that, I mean, I think it's being overcomplicated, because what really matters to me, I think, is the education of the children and the experiences of the children, not where they are.
Thank you. Nicely said. And it is about kids, isn't it?
Did you put her up?
Yes. Ms. Lyons.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Lyons. I was on the reorg committee. I'm also the extended day coordinator. I'm a Templeton resident. I just wanted to give my personal opinion, not even as a member of the committee or anything like that, but after we had talked, I am in support of the alternate plan. I think that it would be really beneficial to have an early childhood learning center where, you know, pre-K and K is all in one area. With that being said, I don't know if the environment at the Phillipston School right now is suitable for that. I know that the playground is really outdated, so obviously I would think that we'd have to look into that, how we could tailor the environment for them, because even the new playground that is behind the police station, teachers from Phillipston have even said it's it's not really suitable for the younger kids. It's more tailored towards the older children, so that would be a concern for me. I like the idea of, you know, bringing more equal opportunity to kids from both towns. That way, when they do transition to 6th grade, they have had the same education. I know that we also talked about the transition for some of the 5th graders to 6th grade, or even now, the kids going from 4th to 5th and all coming together. And I know that you had said, Vicki, even that, you know, one of your children had a hard time being that Phillipston kid that's has a very small group of kids that they know, and then coming in and everybody else in the school already knows each other, that was kind of a difficult transition, making new friendships at that point when everybody else had known each other their whole lives, essentially.
Just to interject right there, it's funny because I did go home and talk to them about that, and it was my daughter, she was the oldest, that she did have a harder time, although she will tell you that because of that experience, one of her best friends, she came out of that small group, out of that 5th grade that she got put into. But my son would tell you that he would have rather stayed in a small school with Phillipston, so...
Right, I think it's, yeah,
I don't know.
probably per situation.
Yeah.
And I one of the points we touched upon in our group too was that it could create a different social emotional environment for the kids. Like we said, you know, a lot of the kids in Phillipston, and I know a lot, I mean, it's a small school, I think I know all of them by now, they fight like siblings because they are with each other, most of them, from kindergarten to 4th grade and now, you know, possibly 5th grade. So, and they're in the same classroom every year. That small 15 to 20 kids moving up all those years, they don't really get the same opportunity to meet different kids and have different classrooms and different environments each year, where in Templeton, I know that they have, I think, 4 elementary teachers per grade. So that was just something to consider, which some people might like that, I suppose, is also something we talked about, they like that small community. And the class sizes would be more equal, I think. So, you know, as opposed to the classroom with 15 kids in Phillipston and 24 in Baldwinville,
28.
We would be able to have all the class sizes, you know, more equal and reduced if we could spread them. What we were talking about, 5th grade considered staying here. I think we had talked about that in the meeting, that one of the big drives for the new elementary school was to bring 5th grade back there because it is considered elementary age by many people, many educators. So I think we had also said that 5th grade did used to be in the elementary school years ago. I don't remember that. 5th grade was always here when I was in middle school. I attended 5th grade.
Yeah. 6th grade.
Yeah.
Oh, the elementary school was? Yes. So, and I think we had talked about that it was elementary and it was moved temporarily to the middle school with the intent that it would be moved back to elementary because it was more appropriate.
And Mackenzie, that's what these forums will do. They'll bring out all this information so that we can think about it and work with it and explain it to people.
Yep, that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I'm going to throw in my 2 cents worth. And mine is 95 South Road. I come from the area that Mackenzie's unaware of. I was one of those students that lived in Templeton my entire life, got bused from one side of town to the other. I went to Templeton Center. I got bused over to Baldwinville for 5th and 6th grade. That was when we had the 4th grade school in Otter River where we all got together. Every 4th grader in the district went to that school. We got to know each other. We went our separate ways in 5th and 6th grade, and then we came back to Narragansett, and we already all knew each other, it was actually pretty fantastic. I'm kind of in support to have all the kids together because they do get to know each other because we are a family here in Narragansett, and I really think to have all that piece together, have all those kids together to strengthen that family bond
Thank you, Mrs. Lyons. Yes, please, folks.
My name's Amy McGee. I live on Royalston Road in Phillipston. Just a few points, and I'm against it only because I moved to Phillipston in 2006 due to the fact of a small school. I knew they would join up in 5th grade and come to the middle school and high school. As soon as my daughter, who is now 5th grade here, got to preschool, I got involved in Phillipston, joined the PTG that first year. My husband thinks I'm crazy. She's 3 years old. Why are you doing this already? From being in Phillipston, I know every teacher. I have known every student that's gone through Phillipston up until probably the last year that I don't know a lot of the little ones. Going with the separation from Phillipston to Templeton and your kids are alone, you know what? My kids do sports. They did the rec sports since they could begin, for baseball, soccer, softball, basketball. My daughter came here for 5th grade. Was it a little difficult? Yeah, but you know what? She has more hard times with the kids she's been in school with in Phillipston since kindergarten. She's accepted more with the new kids that are here in Templeton, and she enjoys that. Would I take it away from her? No, because she thrived in Phillipston. Most Phillipston students, with the education level, teachers on both different schools, our class sizes, yes, they're smaller, but if you look at the honor roll, three-quarters of the... No.
We can't really
Oh, I know.
support that right now.
No,
So
but I'm just saying, like, three-quarters of those kids usually make honor roll, at least in 5th grade, 6th. I don't know about continue.
We can come back with that, but
No, I
that's
know.
not
No,
relevant yet.
but everybody's saying about the education being different at both schools. But when they get to 5th grade, apparently it must level out. Because for students from Phillipston and students from Templeton to both make honor roll, they must have been taught the same thing in order to get their education to be where they need to be for the standards of Massachusetts.
That's true.
So,
We are a district.
Right. So whether you think your kids should all be together or separate, I don't know, but like I said, I moved to Phillipston for that reason. Do things have to change in life? Yes. Things do have to change. But no matter what you do with the schools, you're going to have the same problems, whether it's a small school, whether it's a big school. If the numbers stay the same as they are, if it's K and pre-K, in Phillipston, you're going to have 125 kindergartners. Roughly, it's usually 25 per class if we average it out. Preschool is half-day programs. So you have about 90 preschoolers right now at Phillipston. Between all the preschool classes, we have about 90 kids that are preschool. So you're going to have a school that you're saying those kindergartners aren't going to get music, art, and gym because you're not going to have a special?
Oh, they do get it.
Right, but not from a special teacher, because now you still have to hire a specialist teacher to go to Phillipston to do that, which you don't want to do when you still have the other kids there. That's, I don't understand that aspect.
Their curriculum supports the art
Right.
and the music. The kindergarten and pre-K supports that inherently in their standards. They spend more time on that in kindergarten and
So the
first grade.
kindergarten teacher
Pre-K and
herself
K.
would have to teach all those specials to those
There would
students?
be some support, but the curriculum itself is taught through the arts. So much of that is integrated. That's how they developmentally learn. So that's what the NEAS accreditation tells us we're
Okay,
doing
so they
well.
would just
Am
go...
I correct, Dr. Kazvan?
So, yeah, it's,
Okay.
so, the question came up, and I needed to find this out. I had no idea. What are the requirements? Remember, the equity rule would provide to one, you must provide to the other. Okay. NEAS does not, necessarily, okay, but I want to make sure.
I know about that,
So what that did is, we talked about it very briefly, it added flexibility to providing a early childhood education. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have an art, a gym. We'd have to, again, remember, both sides, both plans would have cost, okay? But you would not have to dedicate the three unified arts folks to that building in order to make, one, the schedule work, and two, to meet the criteria of what would be 9. All right, so that doesn't mean that they would not get PE or anything like that. To give you an example, play is actually time on learning for kindergarten, which is completely different at the upper level. So those did have to be obviously some changes.
I am thankful that it will go before a forum, though.
Oh, thank you.
Both towns can voice their opinions and everybody can understand what is happening. So it's not a secret society against you and you're going to just throw it out at there. But that's all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, thanks. All right, if I see, do we have one more comment? We're going to have Mr. Terrazzini talk to us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Carter Terranzini. I'm the town administrator for Templeton. I want to make it clear that I speak here without direction from my select board. I think that you've got a difficult task ahead of you. Tradition is always difficult to challenge, and certainly one of the biggest negatives of the optional plan is a potential loss of identity for some folks in Phillipston. The world changes daily, and a plan that made sense when conceived of 15 years ago may not make sense today, and the plan that you settle upon tomorrow may not make sense in 5 or 6 years. So I think it's important that we are always constantly scanning the environment, learning what new experiences bring us, and that we are open. And while history is an important reminder, it's also important that we not lock ourselves against potential future opportunities based upon prior decisions having been made. The plan to go ahead as originally is great. That's what we told people. The alternative plan, and I will admit I am often about the numbers first. I don't think there's any disagreement about that. But as you know, my wife is a special education director, and her offices are located in the early elementary, pre-K, K building. She speaks highly of the model. She speaks highly of the educational opportunities of the 1 to 5. So here I get to speak not only in support of saving money, but of possibly good education as well. So those stars kind of align nicely. I know this is a challenge, but I would certainly encourage this body to go forward with the forums to learn more, and hope that everyone, committee members, bean counters, citizens, would keep an open mind as you work your way through that process. Because we're all under great pressure. We lost 2% of the students across this state, but regional school districts have lost close to 15% of their students. That population shrinks, it changes, and maintaining the smaller institutions the way we have, located geographically where we have, it's a great challenge, and it's one that I know you struggle with, as do I, on the general fund side of things. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. All right. So we have one. Yes, please. Mr. Anderson.
My name is Scott Anderson, Pale Factory Road, East Templeton. First, I'd like to apologize for my cell phone going off.
That happened. No, sorry.
I just have one comment. While I agree with everything that's been said as far as this is for the kids, and we need to keep the kids in mind, and I totally agree with that. I think what we need to do, and because, as stated, this is such a politically charged issue, that I think regardless if the agreement allows the committee to have the authority to make a decision in the end, based on all the information, I think the forums are great. You need to get this out there. You need to tell people. There's not many people here. People don't know about this. People need to be told about this. People need to be, we need to have data. We need to have to make a decision. Cost, yes. The kids are important. Costs are important too. Towns, as people have said, towns don't have a lot of money. But what I'm requesting is that in the end, regardless of the authority of the committee to make a decision, I think because the original decisions and the original agreements were made at town vote in both towns of the people that have elected you people to the committee, that I think that you should consider it going to a town vote if it's that politically charged. I realize that costs towns money, but if it becomes this politically charged, and there's a lot of things, I think if it becomes something that you guys are going to make a decision on, I think it should go to a town vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no more hands, I'll take a motion to, are we, motion to adjourn.
Well,
No.
We have to. It's a matter of the subcommittee.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that, after this presentation, that now that our District Reorganization Advisory Committee has completed their task, that we decommission the Advisory Committee.
Seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Madam Chair, I would also like to make a motion that we send an official letter of thank you to all the members of the committee for all their hard work that they put into bringing forth the information that they've shared with us. And perhaps we could ask our secretary, Dr. Casavant, or Mrs. Varney, to draft such letter for our lovely Madam Chair's signature on behalf of the committee.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. And, Madam Chair, I would like to request that we have the superintendent set up our community forum and get that organized, advertised, as well as create the survey, get that prepared.
So, Madam Chair, looking at the dates, again, looking at the 20, hold on, I'm sorry. I have, well, again, Tuesday, April 24th, but there was also some discussion about putting that off, Mr. Terrazino's request, because of the impending vote, and so I wanted to make sure I brought that up. But we had that kind of tentatively scheduled in the, for the, well, either for the Kiva or for the auditorium, depending on the number of people. So I leave that up to your discretion.
What was the potential conflict?
Mr. Terrazino, we're just
concerned a little bit about the time suck, the exhaustion factor. Will be trying to pepper, if you will, our population with information over the coming 4 weeks with some added forums on the debt exclusion and the override question that we have and some other things. So to the extent we could try to avoid any conflict, I was hopeful that could be done. But if there's a need to move this process along further, I certainly respect that.
To that point, we have the 24th.
I was going to say, I am concerned because I know there's been some information now that we've had this meeting, it'll go out. And I personally feel that the community, sooner rather than later, needs to be presented with the information.
I fully respect your need to move along quickly. So I don't think we have anything that week of the 24th. So consider my concern satisfied.
Can I get a second on my motion, by the way?
Second.
There we go. So
Which
the
was
24th then?
What
To
time?
schedule the forum and do the survey.
Is that enough time to get this information out to people? You have vacation next week, I don't know.
Well, to get the notification out for the
Forum.
2 weeks.
Forum, yeah, that's
Not for the survey, though.
No, the survey will come after the forum anyway.
Yeah.
But we
don't
need-
know what the question will be.
We're going to push it out to as many community members as we can,
We're gonna
regardless
put it
of
out-
whether or not they have students in the district.
Absolutely. The entire community, period. Yes, that was the decision of the discussion, I should say, of the subcommittee. So given all the ways that we can push out information, we're going to do that.
So could we have the finalized survey questions for our school committee meeting on the 25th for approval, and then we send it out right after that?
Yes.
Okay.
so that would make sense. So forum on the
that-
24th, we'll get the finalized list of questions on the
Anything to
25th
add?
to approve, and then we'd be good to go.
What time for a forum?
6 o'clock? Is it 5 o'clock? I don't know.
I would think the later, not late, but I would think 6
6.
o'clock would be better.
6, I think 6, too.
Coming from
6?
work, I'm guessing.
6.
And I would just add that based upon turnout and comments, if we need to schedule a second one, we'll do so after that meeting. I don't want to be closed to potentially doing more, but at least we can get the first one out there. And here, I think, in my mind, the initial feedback, this has been very helpful to hear some of the thoughts, concerns, and comments. So I think we'll need time to ingest and maybe be able to come back with further information as requested.
And it's important that we have a forum all together, so everybody hears the same answers and the same questions. And we may have to have more, as you said. So, all right.
Vote on that?
Yes. We have motion, we've had discussion. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion and we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.